Why, howdy folks, welcome to Mower Mike's. I tell you what, if you have got yourself a broke ass lawnmower engine like this one that's just spewing smoke, low compression, and you want to know the very basics of how you change out the piston rings, well, you came to the right spot. This is going to be a quick and dirty video of how to change out the piston rings, which means looking at the piston rings, pulling the rod out, putting the new piston rings on there, measuring everything, prepping the cylinder, doing a little cylinder honing. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. Now, this is gonna be my very short version that we're just gonna concentrate on the piston rings and the cylinder itself. I'm going to post a whole very detailed video on everything. That's gonna show everything from all the oil seals, the valve lash, head gaskets, the whole kit and caboodle on a different video. But since I know some of y'all want to get straight to the point on the piston ringos, we're gonna do that here. So on the next shot, what you're gonna see this engine here inverted. We're gonna have to flip it over. Also, I'm gonna have the pants pulled off. I'm gonna have the oil pan pulled off, have the camshaft out, and we're gonna go straight into the rod so we can show you how to remove the rod and thus change out the piston rings. Again, I'll put all the links to the longer version video down below once I whet your appetite with this one. So stay with me and let's have some fun. All right, folks, let's take a look inside the engine and don't be scared, all right? I know it's a lot of parts, but I'm here to hold your hand. All right, first thing you notice is a big old chunk of metal right there. What that is a counterbalance system. We are not going to touch that because we do not need to touch it. All right. So what we're after, you're gonna look up here through the cylinder, that is your rod, your push rod, and that connects to a main bearing cap right there on the crankshaft. And what we need to do, we need to unbolt this, the bottom piece is gonna come off, and then we'll be able to push that push rod up through the top, and voila, piston's gonna come out as long as you have your head off. Now, I've tried some different angles because when this thing rotates, it's going to pull all the way back here, and there's just not much room for a wrench. So what I've had to do, you'll see I've rotated it all the way against the far wall, and that's going to give me room to get my wrench in here. So what I do, I got a little short extension, a T40 Torx bit, and then we're going to slide it underneath here like so, and hopefully we'll be able to wrench it off. Now, since I am a one-man show, I'm gonna have to remount this camera and we'll see if I can actually get it off this time. Stay with me. All right, we are set up. Now, to give myself maximum space and make sure I don't ding these suckers up, I'm pulling my lifters out. You just slide them out right there. And what these are, this is the little flat piece rides on your camshaft and it goes up and down and it pushes up your push rods. I'm sure I just called that a push rod. All right, I got my lingo wrong. I'll go back to my Encyclopedia Engines and correct myself. All right, forget all that. All right, so let's get off this main bearing cap. So I'm just lined up underneath here, and we're gonna try to, it's all about angles, because you sure as hell don't want to strip one of these suckers off of here. All right, come on, come on. All right, I got a good seat in there, and I'm just gonna hang on, folks. Come on. God, dog, that sucker is tight. Huh. All right, well, I guess we'll keep on trying. I'm really worried about breaking something. All right, so I'm going back in here. Sometimes 2 times is a charm, right? I'm sure you're getting lots of shot of just my... This wrench is such a piece of junk. Look, it don't even snap. Golly. You'd figure I had some better tools here at Mower Mike. All right, we got another contact. All right, we loosened that one up. That was a little scary, I'll tell you that much. Now we're gonna go around for the other side and see if I can't get this sucker come off. All right, you see right there, I got the angle on her. See if I got enough room. I do not. Try a little shorter one. It's always good to have lots of different sizes extensions in the shop. All right. Perfect, perfect. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and crank on it. Try to hold it as straight as possible. What in the world? That one came off super easy. So, I don't know. I guess they had two guys install this thing at the old Briggs and Stratton factory. No, all right, well, I'm gonna stop wasting your time. I'm gonna go ahead and unscrew these two bolts, and then we'll get a close-up of me actually pushing this push rod out of the engine. All right, got those two bolts out off the main bearing cap, off the connecting rod. Yes, I called it a push rod earlier. I was mistaken. Please don't leave comments and be one of those jackasses. All right, so what we're gonna do, we'll pop that thing off. Let's see. It should just slide right off like so. Like so, I said. All right, got it off. And now you should be able to just push this thing up, push the connecting rod up. Let me see here. And when you push it up, it'll slide right up the piston bore. So let me go ahead and loosen it up and we'll get a shot of it coming out of its hole. All right, stay with me. Hi folks, grab your hot toddy and whatever you're drinking and strap in for the money shot because we are gonna push this piston out of the engine. So all you do, like I said, you push on, whoa! I did not plan on it flying out. That is not the correct method, but she was ready to come out. All right, so you see the piston here? It's actually not too dirty. I'm gonna go ahead and clean it up. Take the old, we're gonna clean it up a little bit. And next what we're gonna do, we're gonna zoom in on the bore and start prepping it for some new piston rings. Wow, well that was a little more exciting money shot than I planned on, so stay with me, who knows what will happen next. Okay folks, we've got the piston out of the cylinder and now we're gonna do some really cool engine building stuff. So what we need to do now is actually prep the cylinder because you don't want to just throw new piston rings on there right off. You've got to do a couple of steps here. Because if you look at the cylinder wall, you're going to see it's got kind of a sheen to it. And also there's some very small scratches here, but they're pretty much worn off. What we need to do is hone the cylinder. And what that's going to do, that's going to take that sheen off there. And also it's going to put some new cross hatches in there, which are just little tiny cuts, scratches essentially, that go on the inside of the cylinder, and it's going to allow the new piston rings to set in there and really seal. Because if you go like this, that cylinder is already too slick, it's not going to seal to the new piston rings. In order to do that, what I've got here, look at that guy. This here is a flex hone. They're really handy, they're on Amazon. And what you do, you buy one of these guys and you slide in there and you turn it super fast and it goes in circles, and these are little cutting balls. And they're going to make little scratches all the way up and down the cylinder, which is going to hone your cylinder. And it's really good for home mechanicking. Before you do this, you do need some honing oil. You know, Flex Hone has their own honing oil. I found some of this, knife blade oil. Essentially an oil. You don't want to use motor oil because it clogs up your actual cutting little balls. Do some sort of honing oil to spray in there and get her lubed up before you start cutting. Again, I'll put all the details down below. I did a whole separate video going through a lot more detail on prepping the cylinder also, which I'll put down below. So let me go ahead and get set up and we'll hone her out real quick and then slap in some new piston rings. All right, let's get the honing cylinders. Now, first thing, I suggest shoving some sort of towel or something down behind here at the base of the cylinder because you really don't want whatever is being honed out to fall into the rest of your engine. So don't use an old shirt like I'm doing. Probably better to use a towel, but that'll work. All right, so to actually hone the cylinder, you've got your flex hone here. And when you buy one of these, you want to get one that's maybe a quarter or a half inch larger than your actual cylinder. You can see this one's a little small, but it's what I got. And then you're going to hook it on your DeWalt drill. And you're just going to do a slow, steady motion in and out. a few different passes, and let's see how it goes. All right. All right. See, I'm having to kind of round mine because my flex hone is too small. All right, there we go. Now we're getting somewhere. That's too cool. See, folks, it doesn't need a whole lot. Let me go ahead and zoom in and show you what we've honed out here. Hopefully I don't drop my... All right, let's look at that cylinder wall. Just after that, look at what a change it is. We've gotten rid of that sheen on there, and we've got some great cross hatching on here. Looks like I probably should have gone a little faster because you really want those cross hatches, but that'll work. She's all scratched up pretty good and ready for a new piston, at least for an amateur mechanic like myself. So, all right. So I'm gonna get this cleaned up. I'm just gonna use some carb cleaner on it just to clean out any type of grit that's left over from the honing, and then we are going to look at piston rings. All right, so we got our pretty cylinder all cleaned up. Next, I'm gonna show you a way that you can test to see if your piston rings really are bad. Yeah, you've gotta get this deep into her to understand if the piston ring's bad. Now, the piston ring, I've got the old one pressed in here. What they do is they seal around the piston to the cylinder, keeps the compression in, and as it goes up and down millions of times, eventually it wears out and it makes it thinner and thinner and thinner. Now, a way to test whether or not your piston ring still has enough metal and girth in her is that they test a thing called the piston ring end gap, which is the very end of the piston ring. See that little tiny gap right there? That's where it comes together. Now, as the piston ring gets more worn out, it pulls apart further and further where that gap gets fatter and fatter. So if you go into the official book, yep, I got the official book. So you've got different piston ring end gaps. So for the top piston ring, which this one is, the ring gap should be 0.006 to 0.01. And to measure it, you push it down, and you can try it at different parts of the cylinder. I've got it pushed down maybe an inch or so, and I can fit a 0.0, look at that, 0.017. So that's almost twice the ring gap that we're looking for. So you can definitely tell this one is worn out. When I tested the new top piston ring gap, it was closer to 0.005, which falls within tolerance. So there is some wear on the cylinder, but this is a really good test to not only test whether your old one's worn out, but also when you test your new one, you'll be able to test to see to make sure there's not too much wear on the cylinder. And at this point also, you can measure the cylinder. There's different measures that you can do within the cylinder. It takes a few more tools to measure that out versus just a feeler gauge. So I like the ring gap. It's real simple. So with that, now we are going to move on and we're going to start assembling piston rings on the piston. So now we're gonna have to start some I'm gonna start having some real fun now. Stay with me. All right, so next we're going to play with piston rings. Now the first thing you need to do is take the old piston rings off. All you do is you find the little gap. Oh, and a lot of times they're gonna break because these things are pretty brittle after the beating they've had. So you're gonna have two rings up top. These are your two compression rings. Then down on the bottom part here, you're going to have what they call oil rings. And it should be, like on this one, you're gonna have two super skinny ones. And then you're gonna have a kind of a wavy one there, and that's what keeps the oil where it's supposed to be. All right, we got those two off, and then the little guy, well, it's a trouble. Sometimes you need a K-bar to help you out with a tool. Look at that, worked great. All right, so now that we've got the rings off, what you need to do, you need to clean this very thoroughly. You need to clean the piston, clean the ring grooves, make sure all of that is clear, because when we put the new ones in, they need to be loose and be able to slide around. So what I do, just take some carb cleaner and a wire brush and just go in there and just really give it a good cleaning. I suggest carb cleaner and not WD-40, because WD-40 is a lube, but it's a different type of lube than oil, and you don't want that on your new rings because they won't set in right. So, all right, well, I'm gonna clean this sucker up and get her nice and pretty, and then we're going to put on the new piston rings. All right, look how pretty we get that piston. Just a little carb cleaner and elbow grease. She cleaned up real nice. Now, a little pro tip, if you want to really get in there, especially in this top ring groove, just take a chunk of the old piston ring, go in there, and it makes the perfect cleaning tool. Because you can go around, you can feel the rough spots, really get in there, and make sure it's all cleaned out. And most of your grit is going to be in the top ring, because that's where all the carbon hits, the boom boom action happens. Now, at this point, I'm just going to replace the piston rings, but if you wanted to replace the piston, this is the point to do it. In order to take the piston off, there's a little piston pin in there. You pull it out, you can get a little sharp pick or needle or something. Pull that out and then pull the piston pin out. It's going to slide through your rod here and then just slide the new one on. Now, when you're buying your piston, just make sure, you can see once I cleaned it up, I actually can see the piston number on there and it says STD, that means standard size, and then you can buy it based on whatever oversize or standard that you need. Sometimes these pistons get beat up because they are aluminum, or you might want to go with a bigger size because your cylinder's worn out. All right, so we've got that covered. Next, let's talk piston rings. Now, if you've watched my channel at all, you know I am big on pushing the cheap crap on Amazon, all the Chinese carb kits and everything else. But when it comes to things like head gaskets, engine gaskets, pistons, piston rings, rods, I always want to go with the OEM because they're so much harder to replace. It's not like a carburetor you can just swap on and off. We're in this sucker pretty deep. So I went ahead and just got the original Briggs & Stratton piston rings. Was able to get these on Amazon. I'll post a link below to the ones I've got. There's the part number. Now, a lot of these ring sets will cover all sorts of different pistons. Just do your own research. All right, so we got our piston rings. You're going to have some skinny ones, you're going to have some fat ones. Now, first thing we're going to look at is the fat boys. Now, just don't go swapping on piston rings right off. It comes with some instructions, and you're going to see some color coding on them. If you look here, you can see one has one stripe, one has two stripe. The ring with one stripe is the top ring. I think that's all these. Yeah, and the two stripe is the center ring. So we're going to put the center ring on first. And also, I want these stripes to the right. So don't put it on this way, put it on this way. So that's going to be your center ring. I always like to put a little lube in here just for extra assurance. I like the Max Tough purple. This is an assembly lube, so it's going to be a little thicker than your regular lube, but any type of oil, whatever. Just kind of throw a little lube in there, get things sliding around. Now, you can get special tools for this stuff, but really, these are piston rings. Installing them, they are not that hard. You just want to make sure to get it in the right ring gap. Not that one. Come on, that one more. There we go. And it should just go ahead and slide down in that sucker. Come on. All right, I know this is very riveting. All right, there we go. And you'll be able to feel it once you're in there. And that little lube action is going to help you out a lot. So you see we got our two stripes to the right. Now let's take the next one striper to the right, and this one should be a little easier. One thing you'll notice is that these piston rings are much thicker and stiffer than the ones you took off, because one thing people don't realize, once you run an engine long enough, piston rings are a wear item. It's like doing maintenance every 600 hours or so. All right, so we are set. We can see those two guys. Those are the easy ones to slide in. Next, we've got to do the oil one. And the way these are set up is that you're going to have a real skinny one up top, a real skinny one on the bottom, and then in between the two, you're going to have an oil ring. And this is what keeps them in there. So it's going to look like that on the actual piston. So what I like to do is, again, get you a little lube in there. Lube makes everything better, folks. All right, I'll go ahead and do a skinny one, and these don't have any colors or any fanciness like the big fatties do. And slide that guy on there, and just don't go yanking on these suckers. They are pretty sensitive, and if you're smart, you would install this one first instead of last, so you don't have to pull it over the others. All right, so you install that guy. And then you're going to install your other one. And that one's just going to slide around. Just make sure to put it on top of that one. Slide it around, slide it around, slide it around. There we go. That worked out better than planned. I think it's in there. Just make sure it's all the way in there, all the way around. These are tricky, folks. Trust me. You just got to play with them for a while. Eventually, they will get in there, like so. All right, see, we've got that top one. Now we need the last one to go on the very top. And this is always the trickiest one. Don't hit your camera while you do it. And do not cut yourself on your giant Marine Corps knife. All right. There we go. Again, don't do as I do. Install the oil ring first. This will last. You can see we're coming around, coming around. Oh my gosh, it's lost in there. I'm not going to bore you with this. I'm going to go ahead and do this, and we'll show you the final result. All right, I got them all on there. As you see, this is what it's supposed to look like. You got one, the oil ring, then your other skinny one, and your two rings up top. One thing, just to make sure, again, make sure your marks are to the right. And also, your piston ring gaps, make sure you stagger them. You don't want these stacked on top of each other, because that is not going to be good for compression. So I've got this one gap here, and then just make sure the other one is, you know, a quarter way around the piston. All right, how much fun was that? Whew. All right, now I think it is time to slide this piston into her home so we can finally make some horsepower and I can get to cutting yards. All right, stay with me. All right, folks, now is the time to start getting excited because the next step, we are going to slide the piston back into the engine. But before we start pushing and prodding, I want to make sure we are prepped. So, first thing, make sure you've got all the gaskets cleaned off the side of the engine because we don't want to be cleaning gaskets and getting stuff onto new parts that are clean and shiny. Next, make sure your crankshaft journal where the rod connects is at the bottom of the engine. You can see down there where my finger is. You don't want it rotated up. So if it's up here, just turn 180 and make sure that's on the bottom to give us the most possible room. All right, next, very important, lubrication. Now we want to lube everything. We want to lube inside of the cylinder. We want to lube the journal down here where anything touches. We want to lube around the piston itself. And what I use, I like the Royal Turple Max Tough Assembly Lube. This is an engine assembly lube. It's a little thicker than your regular lube. Just for assembling motors, you can use regular 10W30, whatever. Just make sure to use something. So, all right, so we're getting ready. Now look at your piston, and on the top of the piston, there's going to be an arrow. Now you want that arrow pointed towards the big rusty flywheel, so that's going to point that way. And something else you're going to notice, you got all these piston rings. It ain't going to slide, just slide on in there like butter. No. We need a tool, and I've been going through tools trying to figure out the best one to use. Before I use this one, which uses a pair of pliers, and you put these clamps around the piston rings, it did not work in this application for whatever reason. So now I have got a small engine piston ring compressor. And what it does, you slide this sucker in here, and then you compress it, like so. It's just like a big, gigantic clamp. Oh, let's see here. Oh. Okay, sorry, I'm making everybody dizzy. Maybe if I do it right there. There we go. This thing is sharp, I tell you what. Use my new rag here. All right, and just make sure it's fairly close in there. And also, before you start compressing, double check the rings to make sure all the rings are going to slide into their correct homes. You don't want any rings just hanging out. And make sure it's pretty dang tight. You can see right there, I've got about as tight as I can do. And then you're going to slide it over here like so. And then, in theory, we should be able to just whack her down in there, and it should slide straight into the engine. Now, when you start whacking, don't go just using a metal hammer. No, use something soft. You can use the wooden part of a hammer, or if you have a soft blow hammer like so. So keep your fingers crossed. Hope to God this works this time. Come on. God damn, look at that. It went in there. All right, so we've got the piston in here. All the rings are compressed. Now they're pressing against the side. We've got good lubricant. All right, so we're going to move to the next spot. I will list all my tools I have used with the ring compressor. That is an awesome ring compressor for this application. One thing to stress, make sure that you don't have lube on your mating surface where your head gasket is going to go. You do not want that, but you want lube inside the engine. All right, now let's flip this motor over, and then we're going to strap the rod on the crankshaft. And I swear we're getting close. Stay with me. All right, so next we're going to connect the connecting rod to the crankshaft. All you do, it takes a little wiggling, but make sure to line it up right there where it sits flush on the journal, which is the bearing part right there. Put your cap back on, hand thread in the threads, and then you're going to torque them down. Now, per the book on my engine, it's 100 inch-pounds, which is not much torque. Some of the engines, the horizontal engines, I mean, take up to 150. So make sure to check your torque settings. And when you torque them, go ahead and torque the one closer to the piston first. That's what it says in the manual. That's a new one on me. So yeah, just torque it down. Again, it's not much torque at all. Get that one, and then go ahead and get your other one. Now, when you torque these down, you're gonna notice there's not a whole lot of space. And so I prefer this torque wrench here, which is a little 1/4 incher torque wrench, T-Cron. I'll put a link down below, but once you get that one, you're gonna have to rotate it up like so, and then we will go ahead and torque the other one. Now you are officially past the hardest part of this job, and now we gotta put in some camshafts, a couple other parts, strap it together, and then we're actually gonna see if this thing works. I hope to God it does. So stay with me. Look at that. Torqued and ready to go. Again, make sure to check your torque settings to make sure you get the right torque, because you don't want to have to do this again. Well, hot damn, look at that. She just all came back together overnight. That's a joke, folks. After that last shot you saw on this one, I had to go ahead and reinstall the cylinder head, the valve cover, the camshaft, the oil pan. So there's still quite a bit of work outside of just slapping on those new Purdy piston rings. But again, I'll show all that in the more extended version down below. Also, everything I have used on this video, I've got Amazon links down below. All the tools, the gasket set, which is really cool. It's a complete Briggs & Stratton OEM gasket set that comes with the new piston rings straight to your door. So again, I'll put that link down below. Also, I swear we're almost done with this engine, and we've got some more fun videos once I get past this engine with chainsaws and chainsaws on sticks, and I'm getting pretty excited about that. So stay with me, and let's have some more fun next time. Mower Mike out.